Welcome to a peaceful moment in time. Let your mind unwind and relax as we take you on a gentle journey designed to calm your thoughts and soothe your soul. Step away from the noise and find a quiet moment just for you. Let the peaceful sounds and stories guide you toward calm and serenity. Relax, breathe deeply, and let the calming stories wash over you. Join us for a moment of tranquility as we take you on a peaceful escape from the everyday. Take a few deep breaths, relax, and let your body become completely still. Aside from your tummy rising and falling due to the soft waves of your breath, and allow us to. Thomas is shocked to wake up because he had almost fallen asleep off his head after collapsing backward to lie on the battlefield. Thomas glances around and discovers that he is not alone. Around him, early morning employees are taking a few more snoozes. However, nobody else appears to have woken up at that time before reaching their destinations. He must be one of those mesmerizing jerks who believes that I might not have even. Fell asleep at all. Thomas has a very lengthy commute every day. Resides in his own apartment near the Northern Line's southernmost point in. Despite the long commute to work every morning, London never misses him. Chance to express his gratitude for discovering an open. He always gets on the train first, maybe because he believes the distances. Thomas considers the location he is rushing to at the early hour of the day, making the ride worthwhile. Works as a program manager for a modest yet reputable software development firm situated in. He began working in London over 8 years ago when he first started. After completing his schooling, he likes to spend time with the individuals he collaborates with and maintains a positive working connection with his supervisor. But every time Thomas considers, he observes this response as he enters the office. Come, then observe it depart, but never forget that when he gets to work that morning, something is off, and greets the other people who have arrived at 7 in the morning. He would rather start his day as quickly as possible in order to complete his work ahead of schedule and take in the late day sunlight as it hits the verdant grass. His fingers begin tapping in the London parks, working on projects and traveling to clients occasionally, usually when the afternoon arrives and nobody has come back from lunch yet, he takes a break from soft work to do some investigation on potential destinations in Japan, Australia, Peru, and Greece. But this morning he is diligently working on a new project for a fledgling business situated in Athens. Is typing when his employer interrupts him politely with "I've been considering this proposal, Thomas," she says. "I would adore it if we could personally get to know the Athens team. Well, I would like you to go over there and meet our clientele so you can get to know them. Our name has a lot of potential for a long and prosperous future." For the first time in a long time, Thomas is happy and in a relationship, smiles broadly, beaming from ear to ear, and his supervisor, Louisa, interprets this as a yes. You should stay in the city for 5 days, giving me plenty of time for business and relaxation. Thomas's mother is Greek, according to the exploration. She migrated to England many moons ago after growing up just outside of Athens. She was really young and had only made a few subsequent appearances. Although Thomas has never traveled, he has always had a deep desire in his bones to go back to where his forefathers lived has just become too. He believes he's busy, but he knows this isn't. Excuse me. Thomas comes home that evening and starts packing. He is not scheduled to leave until the end of the week, but he finds it difficult to. In his enthusiasm, he phones his parents to inform them that they are both. Satisfied, he sleeps that night and gazes out his window at the city and the sky are illuminated by the nearly full moon and stars. Jets fly by the neighboring fields like flashing lights. He believes I shall soon be inside one of those that freely glide over the universe. Since he was a youth, he has not flown these vessels, and he is now getting close to. 30 recollections start to surface as he considers his early years and his grandfather and his grandparents shared a close relationship. Thomas's father was a farmer, and he recalls training through the fields alongside him, occasionally venturing into the woods to gather fruit. And when they ventured off into the woods, he always felt like he was in a fairy tale. There was something mystical about the woods. Maybe it was the way the breeze, the sounds of fluttering birds, or the rustle of leaves could be the crunching of. He cherished the scent of evergreens and the twigs beneath his feet. He might believe that the way the light filtered through the thick canopy above was a. Combining all of these, he recalls his mother's mother. Clearly how she prepared food, how she was very sweet and compassionate, and she always asked Thomas and in the kitchen, his sister Katrina would assist him by rinsing and drying the herbs and lush greens before assisting their grandmother in making pasta sauce. They would continue to stir while she added a variety of fragrant herbs to the cooking tomatoes, which had not been done in a long time. Thomas got a revelation that made him feel something, but he didn't notice it. When he assisted his grandma in getting ready, he missed the languid pace of time. It's been way too long since meal. Believes that at this very moment, Thomas promises to return to the kitchen following his journey too. The week in Athens goes by slowly until Friday finally arrives. After packing his things and arriving, Thomas takes a final glance around his apartment. Even though he knows he's only going for a long weekend, he says. In any case, Thomas enjoys the greenery of London while traveling to the airport by train. The May blossoms are a sure sign that spring has arrived, and the sun is beaming on the outskirts. Arrived, his heart is racing with a sense of silent expectation. Even though the trip is mostly for work, He will have the whole weekend to himself. It has been a long time since he visited Athens to see the city before meeting his client on Monday. He has traveled this far, and a visit to his mother's homeland is igniting his. An adventurous spirit, his journey to Athens from. As the plane cuts through the city, London is only a few hours long. Clouds appear and vanish as the plane passes over the continent below. Thomas believes it is miraculous that it moves in and out of the veil of the sky. As a child, he frequently dreamed about humans being able to fly. The ability to fly in a certain recurring dream. He would see himself fly across open fields on sprout wings, and oceans would then awaken, considering the possibility that the dream was a foretelling of his. Future Thomas chuckles to himself when he remembers this and believes that although this type of flying may not be exactly the same, it is. The plane lands early because it is close enough. Afternoon, and Thomas enters the town center, where he stays at a tiny. After checking into a guest home among the city's historic ruins, he strolls up the stone spiral staircase leading to the third. His room is spotless and features a tasteful fusion of modern and rustic design elements. Touches. It's basic, yet it's all he needs. He inhales deeply and exhales a wave of calm before letting out a sigh. And he is struck by comfort. The room has a tiny balcony with. Thomas heads to the glass door that opens to the outer world, which is obscured by sheer curtains. Balcony and exits his chamber, which overlooks the historic. As the Athens Acropolis hums beneath a metropolis, he's prepared to. Thomas investigates the small streets and alleys through. Without a map, he feels completely lost in markets and on meandering, tree-lined roads, and yet is choosing the uncharted path with no worries in the world. Letting it develop as he moves forward, he climbs a couple flights of stairs and travels on cobblestone walkways until he arrives at the base of the. When Thomas looks up at this ancient fortress, the Acropolis, he briefly feels as though he's wandered through time, wondering what might have happened. Like to live in classical Greece, a plethora of myths spring to mind as. He remembers getting really moved when he recollects some of the stories his grandmother used to tell. Ethereal, much like how he feels when he is at the base of the Acropolis. He now pays for his admittance and goes to discover that his breath has left him. He's gone for a few seconds as he walks in, but something has taken him. As he gives up this area, AB almost brings him to tears. He becomes aware of the emotion swelling within him and how long it has been since. He has consented to be influenced, and the journey to Athens starts to reveal anew. Thomas is unable to fully explain this version of himself, but it brings about. He inhales and exhales with sentiments of calm, assurance, and clarity. With ease, he spends the whole weekend exploring the old Greek city, just enjoying regional cuisine and taking in the ancient heritage, ruins, and resting peacefully for however long his body demands. All anxieties vanish as he gives, granting himself freedom to fully engage with the place whose past flows through his veins. He hasn't slept so soundly in a long time that he falls asleep with ease. He awakens with a sense of inspiration and vitality as he investigates. He inexplicably forgets about his Monday morning meeting, but when he gets there, he gathers his computer and goes to the new modest office he meets Sam, the company's representative in the town center, founder, and meets the group he has been collaborating with online for what seems like hours each month. They discuss anything tech related while Thomas is. The meeting concludes, and Sam expresses gratitude to him for attending all the journey to Athens to observe the company's operations. Level Thomas smiles, returns the favor, thanks him, and returns to his hotel for the. He feels a range of emotions bruise inside him on the last evening, but he finds it difficult to put. On his last night in the city, he can feel what his heart is aching for. Thomas looks out over the ruins and the rest of the area from his balcony. City, the temperature is pleasant, and there are no clouds in the sky. The now waxing moon still casts a. Thomas looks up at the earth's surface below, which is glowing brightly, experiencing a. Thomas remembers having a somewhat familiar relationship with the stars and the moon many years ago. Every summer, he would pack up and head to the sea with his parents and sister. Take the vehicle and travel to a little bed and breakfast located on the southwest coast of. On these long summer weekends in England, leisurely time was spent strolling along the. Evenings were early at the beach or while exploring neighboring towns and villages, although Thomas recalls that his father used to make hot chocolate and fill a few thermoses with it on warm nights. Under the sky, the whole family would sit and point out the few constellations they were familiar with while enjoying this sweet summer treat. Thomas is experiencing nostalgia as he washes one of their travel mugs. Over him, longing for the times when he was more connected and had fewer concerns. He looks up at the moon as he takes in the surrounding natural environment. A tide of calm and consolation sweeps over Athens like a lullaby. The moon passes over him, giving him the impression that it's time for him to relax. He heads to his bed as it's time to let his body rest for the night. Falls asleep quickly, and peacefully Thomas goes back to London, though. He has a great desire for something the following day and for the next few days, yet he's not really sure why, but he knows it has something to do with. He misses how adventure shaped him throughout his journey to Athens. Feel as if a piece of him was rising to the surface and returning to. He is conscious of the fact that something is requesting his attention, but he's unsure of how to interpret it or what. Specifically stating that Thomas found it difficult to concentrate on his. His voice is getting louder over the next few weeks, but he's beginning to feel afraid. He questions whether it would have been simpler if he hadn't traveled to Athens at. All he is aware of is that he is suddenly doubting the life he is leading. However, listening to that voice more intently feels too scary. The whispers get louder and louder until it seems like he has no choice. Until eventually gaining clarity and self-assurance. Return to the origins of. Courageous whisperers return to their roots, albeit they are unsure of exactly where. He is determined that he must quit his employment, regardless of where the journey would take him, and go back to where he was inspired. He needs to go back to the nation that altered circumstances, fearing a bruise in his abdomen. He prefers to follow safe and well-maintained paths rather than taking chances. Illuminated, but he is aware that he must jump and that it is time to take a chance on his future self, whoever that person is relying on. Thomas resigns by the end of the week, and he will spend the following 2 weeks. He gets ready for the task by wrapping up loose ends and transferring work to other team members. Unknown, he recalls a Lord Byron quotation he had heard a while ago. It used to say that the pathless can be enjoyable. By God's providence, Wood's sister comes back to London from the US and offers to move into his flat while he returns to the place where their ancestors came from. Thomas, uncertain of his destination, closes his eyes and puts his finger on. To determine which path to take, a map of the Greek islands is supplied. It lands on a lonely island in the Neon Sea, a tiny, isolated island of. Cadas packs his things and arranges flights to get to this uncharted territory. Although he knows it will be a few months, he is unsure of how long he will be gone. Prepared to start again from scratch, unsure of what that. Indicates that he locates a modest guest house online that provides long-term lodging and reserves 2 months to begin. The location is peaceful, with lots of grounds surrounding the home and a small community tucked away in the foothills. It sounds exactly like what he is trying to find, because the plane lands on the island's southern end a few days later. He calls He rides in a taxi to a little guest house in the Meanies little village. The proprietors of the tiny apartment live in a small hamlet with a view of the sea between Greece and Turkey. They welcome him and come out to greet him. He is renting a room right next door, welcoming him and guiding him around the property where he will spend the next several months. They offer him a position with them at. While eating dinner, Thomas unpacks his things and looks out the window overlooking the. He inhales the pure mountain air from the harbor below and the surrounding mountains. Uncertain of what he's doing, he opens the window and lets air in. Is doing here, and he is aware that he is correct. Thomas leaves for the hills with a little bag filled with food and water to sustain him for the adventure in the afternoon, when he strolls across the mountains and takes in their magnificence. Low-lying bushes on a small island that are red, yellow, and magenta. The primal terrain is illuminated with blossoms as the sun shines down from above him as he moves, following his instincts. He discovers this while he is aimlessly wandering the land without any kind of strategy or purpose. He hasn't roamed thus aimlessly in years, possibly not since childhood. He feels totally unbound and ready to start. Once more, he had anticipated experiencing jitters during these initial days. Yet instead of having periodic worries, he feels very calm. Overcome the questions that are racing through his head concerning his plan and what his goals are, but he acknowledges that he does not yet have the answers to these queries. But he reminds, telling himself that it's all right when he gets back to the apartment. Seeing how exhausted his body is, he locates Maria and George, the proprietors of the guest house, and kindly requests that he join them for supper the next night instead because he's feeling worn out. They advise him to get enough rest after the day's activities and invite him to participate. Whenever Thomas discreetly slips into bed and quickly drifts off to sleep, dreaming that night that he is an astronaut floating in deep space, gazing down at the planet and observing how tiny the Earth appears from far out in the galaxy. He understands it's only one planet, like a tiny house. The dream makes him feel as though he is one of millions of floating bodies in the universe. Amazement, motivation, and a fresh understanding of the planet he inhabits. And he can see from way up here the life that flows through his body. That the earth is a home among homes, and he thinks, wow, in the dream. I woke up the following morning feeling how lovely the house I ended up living in was. The dream's clarity remains with him, and he chooses to honor the earth by walk once more, establishing a connection with the every day. Thomas experiences earth in some way with every step he takes. When learning to walk for the first time, a baby never gives much consideration to the dirt beneath his boots. Yet he feels a strong sense of connection now to the earth that sustains him. He eventually arrives at A. He nestles into the warm sand on a remote beach and marvels at how the sand appears to encircle his body while he nestles. One gets reminded of the dream while gazing out at the water. He now understands in his bones how the earth revolves as a single cohesive entity, that he lives and breathes as one with everything around him. Organism, he inhales the ocean air, feeling increasingly comfortable in his body and in the environment around him. That Thomas comes to the guest home in the afternoon with increased energy and linked to both the area he travels to and himself, the second, constructing a structure on the land where Maria and George is chopping herbs and rolling them into little pieces in preparation for dinner. Of the pastor and getting ready to spread their homemade bread. He observes how naturally their hands handle the bread they are making and extends an offer to. He informs them, "I won't be as quick as you," to which they respond that speed isn't a concern. "If nothing else, we prefer things to go slowly in our kitchen." Thomas feels just at home as he remembers how things moved in his grandmother's kitchen. Over the course of the following few days, Maria and George instruct Thomas on how to make local delicacies made with herbs and derived from them. He learns how to make dadas by encircling his herb with vine leaves. Rice. It dawns on him that he has completely lost himself in the kitchen. His hands start working with the food while he is in the zone, making preparation easier, and Thomas is intuitively reminded of the satisfaction that comes from eating real food from seed. To endure one evening in his first week. This time, he experiences another vivid dream, but it's in an open. There are wooden tables arranged in a meadow under a big awning, are decorated with lace tablecloths and freshly harvested flowers beneath the canopy. As dusk falls, flowers and tiny glittering lights border the awning's perimeter. Thomas stands at the head of the table as his loved ones arrive. The table and distributes the meal he has prepared for his guests, dish by dish. Under the July night, the gathering of beasts, friends, and relatives were whispering and laughing, enjoying the head chef's delicious creations. He knows exactly why he is here when he wakes up in the morning. Reflects on the voice that whispered to him a few weeks earlier. Get. Returning to the roots, and all of a sudden, it's evident which roots he was supposed to. Not only did rediscover reveal the origins that bound him to Greece, but those contaminate the land. He wants to learn about the planet via food. He wants to feed the planet and the inhabitants by cooking healthful plant-based meals and maintaining a relationship with them. As he wanders the land, he discovers Maria that morning and joins her in the garden. He is motivated to learn more about each of the plant rows. He asks Maria if she might teach so he can learn more about how they develop. She brightens and shares what she knows, saying it would be an honor to pass it on. Her familiarity with the land Thomas spends 6 more months absorbing all the knowledge he can find in his heart and soul. He learns how to cultivate the soil so that it can be harvested and used for foraging. Cook. He feels ready to bring when his last month in Greece arrives. His expertise back to London, his more permanent home, and start a new life. Once more, on his final morning in Greece, Thomas gets up early and goes to Frey's favorite. Travel across the mountains when the sun hasn't come up and there aren't any indications that anything is. Thomas is still awake and continues to walk till he eventually comes to A. He hides in a little cavern overlooking the sea and observes. I'm sitting here in wonder, as the sun rises over the horizon. The new one knows the old Thomas, while the old Thomas hardly recognizes the new one. Well, it's the Thomas from whom he was born. Thomas gives thanks to the land as he observes the light changing from dark to purple to gold. He is happy to be back in Greece, but perhaps more significantly, is fortunate to have found himself again. And he gives thanks to whatever higher self helped him make the unknowable jump that he would soon realize would permanently alter his life. Late that afternoon, his aircraft departs, and he is aware that he will eventually return. For now, he looks forward to this enchanted place. On his return, Thomas is prepared to go wherever it takes him. He spends staying with his parents in their rural house for a few months, but fortunately his sister is content to keep residing in his flat, giving him the time he needs to decide what to do. Afterward, he continues to cook until the refrigerator is ready, devoid of vegetables and filled with savory plant-based. He provides his mother with two of her preferred traditional Greek dishes. He developed his dodes and cat has, and a creamy, somewhat salted FA dip with. She's ecstatic about the caramelized onions to serve with freshly made bread. Amazing meals he's made, as well as by his renewed sense of purpose and motivation. Thomas soon returns home and enrolls in a cooking program. Starts his own catering business, specializing in delivering plants to plates in a manner that nourishes the earth and all people's souls. He begins modestly serving small groups as a single, fully integrated organism. Festivities for his friends' families as well as theirs in the near future, but his. Numerous people's plates and palates are touched by the blossoms of the catering business. Over his nation, the evening following his first triumphant event, which garnered, bringing city people to the countryside for a meal under the stars. Dreams. He lies on a beach on a distant Greek island, gazing out. He gets inspired and a sense of connection when he looks out over the water and considers its vastness. Sinking into the sand and listening to the world around him as well as to himself. It seems as though nothing is there as the waves slowly sweep into and away from the shore. Everything that occurs in this dream is a sensation that he has had since Thomas started his Greek adventure many months ago and will continue to live for the rest of his life. Recalls his early years and expresses gratitude to the unidentified road for, returning him to his roots every day, for which he is thankful. That debtor's initial journey to Athens was the one that altered everything